Your beard is so gray right now. I really want you to explain to me what gooning is. Well, the gray from your beard radiates across my screen.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, a show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about The Inbetweeners. The Inbetweeners went 18 episodes over 3 series on E4. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called First Day, originally airing May 1st, 2008. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, Gordo, Joe, and Nick. No Ferg this week. What's going on, guys?
Hey-o.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Will, and I'm doing a shit. I love doing a shit, by the way. That's a great expression.
That is. I'm going to have to put that in my lexicon.
Your next book, Gordo.
Well, to start off, welcome to all of you to our second annual Back to School month. So for the entirety of the month of September, every Thursday, we're going to have a different school-related show. We did it last year. We're doing it again this year. We'll have a graphic up. There should be one up by now that tells you all 4 episodes that we're doing. Starting off with The Inbetweeners, which was a show that's been recommended to us in the past. We've had a couple people. We've had Brandon, who was part of Fanuary, brought this show up, but ultimately went with Malcolm in the Middle. So this past Fanuary, he had picked that one. And then Bex, who's a huge fan of the show, and has messaged us numerous times about doing this show. So we're finally doing that. So Bex, I hope you enjoy. I know you've literally, I counted it out. It was 4 different times you've mentioned The Inbetweeners, but you've mentioned a lot of shows. So we're finally getting to this one.
You know how I know it's back to school week? Because yesterday I was taking a walk to the sketchy corner store where not 1, but 2 people were inside shirtless. One who was bleeding down his arm, explaining to the clerk that it wasn't a big deal. And I was just sitting there holding my tall boys like, please let me out of here. But as I was crossing, there was a 4-way intersection and there was 4 school buses and nobody knew who to let go. So it caused this like insane backup because nobody knew where they're going to turn. And it was just like, I wish I had popcorn scenario. It was like these 4 people, because you must be so fucking nervous with kids in the school bus, right? Like you can't like get in an accident. So it just, nobody moved for like a solid 2 minutes. It was, I was like, and school's back, everybody. Here we go.
They're like holding signs up in the window, like, you go first.
Yeah, it was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, getting in an accident with a school bus would suck.
Yeah, imagine doing that. They're so big and yellow. How could you miss it?
So now this show, I am vaguely aware of, mainly from just doing homework on shows we should do, from it being suggested in the past, but I've never seen it. Have any of you guys any background with this one? There was a US version of this show that came out down the road, which I feel like we should cover eventually. It was like a crash and burn 1 season only thing.
I would love to cover the US one because it's an MTV show from 2012 that only made it like 5 episodes. So you know it is complete and utter fucking dog shit.
Sounds like it's too bad too, because like I feel like if it was at any other network, it probably would have stood a chance.
If you had like the right people behind it, like the right showrunner and stuff putting it together, I'm sure.
It's the reverse Office. The Office US surpassed the UK version. I know some people are going to be mad at us for that, but...
Yeah, there's a lot of reverse Office. There's a lot of times. There's been a bunch of shows that have been like failed US adaptations of British programming.
IT Crowd, yeah. Red
With
Dwarf.
this version, did you guys see this before? Know about it?
No, I only knew it by name, and I think it was the American version I knew.
I think I'm with Nick there. Like, I've heard of the show, but I thought it was a weird sci-fi show, so I didn't feel like watching it or looking deeply into it.
The blonde kid with the mod hair is like insanely familiar to me, which made me think I must know him from somewhere. And then like, I've never seen this show. IMDb'd him. No idea. So maybe this was streaming on something at some point and I just saw like a preview of it, but I never even, I think I just, knew the name.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty fresh for all of us. IMDb has this one clocked in at a 7.7. Rotten Tomatoes, 83% critic, 92% audience. So this one is well received by the people who watch it.
It's got to top the charts as far as our show goes. Like,
That's pretty high
got to
for
be
me,
some
too.
of the highest rated we've done.
Yeah.
And then just to, we always try to do this, but never do. Right now, you can watch this on Pluto and Tubi in the US. I don't know overseas where the best places to watch it are. But you do have some options if you're trying to find a free stream for it. Like those 2 apps exist. And then I'm not sure if it's anywhere else, but we got at least those two.
Yeah, not sure if it's on like BritBox or anything. I'd have to check. I'm still like toying around with getting BritBox because there's nothing I want to see on it. I will say though, if you like this show and you enjoy this episode and you want to see it, watch the first one and then probably buy the season because the ads on Pluto were fucking incessant. It was hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the price you pay for a free. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about Pluto, by the way. I think it's an amazing app. Like, as somebody who, like, I love background stuff, like, just to have on in the background, especially I work from home, like, just to throw something on, or at night if you're doing something stupid like laundry or whatever. It's like the perfect application for that, too, because there's always something worth watching on it, whether it be a movie or a TV show. And it's like straight free. Like, and that's like their thing, too, right? Isn't it? Like,
yeah,
well, you'll never pay for this. Like, it doesn't
They compensate, like the things with those free ads, they compensate by having more advertising.
Right,
So,
yeah, which I'm okay with that instance.
I love the Godzilla channel.
They do
That's
have a
on there.
Godzilla channel, yeah.
I watch the Cops channel a lot.
Ooh, cops. Ooh.
Cops is fun to watch, and that's not a binge show, so like commercials don't bother you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. This Old House, too.
Yeah, this whole house is a good
Oh.
one. Yeah. R.I.P. to
Roger Cook, yeah, R.I.P.
Roger Cook.
Oh, wasn't Bob Vila this old house?
Yeah, he was one of, like,
There's a lot of guys on it, but like that's the older crew. Like
he was like one of the first
yeah.
seasons.
I mean, it wasn't a show that I really watched apparently as much as you guys. In my head, it was just Bob Vila.
It's been on the air straight for, I think, 30 plus years.
Oh, I thought that was just
Yeah.
a show that used to exist. I didn't even know.
No, it's still very active, yeah.
No, it's on.
if you go to a doctor's or dentist office, you have like a 50-50 chance of either that or Property Brothers being on. That's what I have learned in the past year of having to go to a lot of doctor's offices. So I've seen a lot of modern This Old House and a lot of Property Brothers. And you know what's good? This Old House. You know what's not good? Fucking Property Brothers.
Oh, I don't mind them.
And I get nervous when it comes to like any foreign programming because I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. It said that this was the first original sitcom created by E4. Doing some loose checking, it looks like E4 is a shoot. It's like a shoot off of Channel 4, so it's kind of like their side channel. So this is their first original sitcom that had come out for that.
Good way to come out of the box.
Channel 4 is BBC, right?
Well, this is where I didn't want to put my foot in my mouth. I don't know enough about it, so
I
I'm gonna
will.
go.
I will.
I know it's a channel. I think it's
I
just
think
a
there's
different channel.
BBC One, BBC Two, and BBC Three. I think Channel 4 is a separate thing that came after BBC Three.
That would
How
be the
original.
logical number to use then.
Right. But again, I'm not 1,000% sure. Most of my knowledge on most British culture is through old music and old TV shows, so it's spotty.
You're putting Channel 4 together, and the Channel 4 guys, like before they officially drop the name, they're looking over at the BBC dudes and like, you guys done? Or
Yeah, is there gonna be like a Beeb 4, or what are we gonna do?
because we'll go with 5. We need to know for sure.
This went 3 seasons. How many episodes, though? Because they get
18.
weird. with that.
18. It's a standard kind of like a lot of these shows are 6 episode series.
And then they had 7 fucking Christmas episodes, right?
There's 2 movies. There's 2 full-length movies, and the 2 full-length movies are basically the length of a season, you know?
And how many Christmas episodes?
There's no Christmas special on this one, but there was a 2019 reunion special that was so bad the creator had to make a public apology for it. So I haven't seen that, but I'd like to.
It was done like a talk show thing,
It was like a panel thing, I think, yeah.
and it wasn't what people thought they were getting. Yeah, they thought they were getting like a reunion show.
I think it was like, you know, when you watch one of those shows like 90 Days and Fiance Pregnant or whatever, and then like they bring everybody back for the last episode. We're like, now we're in a room and we're going to spill the tea, all that bullshit. I think it was like one of those things.
Right.
Oh, okay. Which works on like 90 Day Fiance, doesn't work on.
I mean, it can, but it's just you have to make it known what it is.
Didn't Friends do that?
Yeah, Friends had their reunion, and that's exactly Martin did the same thing. And if you know that that's what it is, maybe it wasn't presented the right way. I don't know. Like it sounds like for there to be like that much outrage, they probably didn't advertise it true to what it was going to be, or misled you, or.
That's why the greatest TV reunion of all time is the Seinfeld reunion. That is the whole season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they're talking about making a Seinfeld reunion, and then they do it. So then you get all these like weird little minute clips of new episodes of Seinfeld with everybody in character. And then you come back out and you're in the real world again. It's like the smartest way to do it. So you get the like fun nostalgia of like, oh my God, it's these characters I love again. But it doesn't like overdo it and get like a long bloated season. And then you're not also just sitting doing panel talk.
to get into this episode, because I think we do have a good amount to talk about and I don't want to go too long. We start off right with the intro. The intro is like all these like monochromatic images of the characters that almost look like it's like cut paper of them, almost doing like a stop animation thing with them at times where it's like different variants of the photos.
It's kind of like, this reminded me of, what's the fucking Tarantino movie?
Kill Bill,
No.
Kill Bill 2.
True Romance.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
It's got the character, it's like Mr. White and...
Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, Reservoir Dogs.
Reservoir Dogs. Isn't the cover for Reservoir Dogs exactly like this?
Yeah, it's very much like this, actually. I think it's a good call. It's like the silhouettes, but they're like darkened out in a sort of pop arty way.
So that's going. I didn't hate it. I don't think it would like in any way tip off what kind of show this is, but it was fine for what it was.
Very British, though.
Just like specific style of rock music for sure was a very.
I got an Oasis vibe.
I mean, this is post Oasis. I mean, like, I was really excited. The last song they play in this episode is Libertines, who's a band I've loved for a million years. My love of Pete Doherty knows no bounds. So, Jay, I remember you were really into the Arctic Monkeys around when that album came out. That was like always in your car.
Yeah.
This was like a kind of interesting. I think this is actually the weird last gasp of modern rock music that took with people. You know what I mean? Like, there were new rock bands putting albums out and they were getting radio play and doing stuff and people gave a shit. And now we're like, who are the biggest rock bands? People are like, oh, Metallica and the Foo Fighters. Like, those bands are 30 and 50 years old at this point.
Yeah, like I wouldn't personally say like I didn't get a big like Oasis vibe, but I would say just a lot of those like, you know, like the bands you just mentioned, Joe, a lot of those British rock bands at that time, and I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know what's going on there really now. There was like the surge of rock music coming out around this time, and it all had that kind of similar guitar tone, like that lighter tone to it, like that was really in this theme. I don't know who composed it. I didn't do the extra step on this one.
This is a band called Morning Runner, who's like part of that whole crew.
Okay. Now the show starts and we see Will kind of entering his new school for the first time. Will's the main character that we're following throughout this, and he's the one who's narrating the entire episode. So we're getting a lot of this whole thing's through his eyes. He's starting a new school for the first time, and we're kind of on a journey with him as he's like exploring this and trying to make new friends. And, you know, you get the narration where he's kind of just saying like, you know, hi, I'm Will, and here are some things I hoped wouldn't happen in my life, and talks about how his father left his mother and how he was taken out of private education and has to go to this school now and like all these other things. And you're getting like cutaways as he's going over all these things happening to him like in this time of his life.
Does anybody else think that he looks far too old to play this character?
Well, they are all four of those boys are like between 20 and 24, I believe.
I think the only moment I get it is in this montage, they do like a sex scene and they cut to him and he just has way too much chest hair for a kid who would be like 16. Cause like, I don't know, Jay maybe had that much chest hair and I have a lot of chest hair now, but at 16, I didn't have that much chest hair, you know?
I still don't.
I would say that you're a lucky man because
I have nipple hair.
Answers to questions that weren't asked for 1,000, please.
Do you trim it ever?
Never.
I've shaved my chest before and I've nared my chest before. I think we have talked about this before. It is a odd situation and you look very weird as like an adult in your 30s with a completely bare chest. Unless you're like jacked. You're a wrestler. If you can take your shirt off at the beach and have people be like, whoa, that guy, definitely take all the hair off. If you don't, you then just look like you have a pig belly and it's super fucking weird. That's so fucking strange.
I want to go back to you mentioning there is like a little cutaway sex scene as he's kind of going over some stuff. He's talking about, you know, one of the girls that a new friend, when he's going over all potential new friends, he goes, oh, and definitely her. And you see them sitting next to each other. He's like, just to confirm, we are going to have sex, right? And when you cut to them having sex, he looks like he's just like planking on top of her.
That's what he's doing. He's planking.
It fucking died. It was like right off the bat. I'm like, all right, I think I'm going to like this show.
I wrote it as pencil style. He's doing like a pencil dive into a pool while having sex. It's a pretty interesting take.
That's funny. Yeah, I got the planking, but some boys got some moves.
I think though that's like a very relatable thing, right? Like, I mean, I will only speak for
no, I knew enough about it.
I don't mean that. I'm just saying that like nobody's good at. I'm not good at that now. And I'm almost 40. I'm just saying, but like no one's really good in high school. You only think you are. You look back and you're like, I'm sure that was the worst 30 seconds of every one of those girls' lives. You know.
You know what I always thought was a great example when you talk about like sex being depicted accurately in like film is in Zack and Miri, because like they're, you know, there's a whole thing, they're making the porn, right? Zack and Miri make a porno. And you have all these different sex scenes. And then when Zack and Miri eventually have sex, because there's like emotion attached to it and stuff, and they go and roll back the tape, it's just the most normal looking, like just up against each other, not a lot of movement sex. So it's like, it doesn't translate to what you see in like porn.
There's no camera there, yeah.
Yeah, it was such normal looking sex that it wasn't like hot. You know what I mean?
Sex is such a fucking funny, weird thing we do as people and build up so much. I always think it's the funniest thing. It's like, you have sex with somebody and you're like, I can see your butthole. And 2 minutes later, you're like, Seinfeld? Like, it goes away so quick. Like, the emotion and the, like, of sex
it is weird to think about,
so
like, generationally, though, too, because, you know, we were, like, on the cusp of the internet, right? Like, we didn't always have unlimited porn, you know, like you can get nowadays, right? Like, that's gonna fuck that generation up. Like, they're gonna have wild expectations.
These kids are getting so bland. Like, I thought the internet and all this shit was gonna make these kids fucking wild, but like now they're just all quiet homebodies. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the main issue. They talk about it on the news sometimes where it's like, oh, this generation of kids like doesn't go out. Like, people aren't dating and like seeing each other and going to parties so much anymore. They're all just like watching porn, taking that in, and then just sitting on TV.
Gooning.
So
I knew Gordo was gonna say it too.
what was the word?
Gooning.
What the fuck is gooning? Your beard is so gray right now. I really want you to explain to me what gooning is. Well, the gray from your beard radiates across my screen, please.
I can tell you what the actual Urban Dictionary definition of gooning is.
As if that's official. Like, that's not something that was user submitted.
Also, you had to look it up. Why are you using words that you need a definition
I mean,
for?
I know what it is. It's basically you watching porn like a fucking dumbass and just not jerking it. Like, you're just watching it like you would, like you watch Seinfeld.
Porn should be like a 30 Oh, of course, yeah.
Gooning may be simply defined as that state usually achieved after prolonged edging session. When a man becomes
That's a very different thing.
That's not
when a man
that's
becomes
not jerking off, by the way,
completely
Gordo.
hypnotized by the feeling radiating his penis. Since a gooning state can only be achieved after edging, the man's dick will become mightily aroused. Yada, yada, yada. This is like a expose.
So you were wrong. You were wrong
so you were
again.
wrong.
You've been using this goon term.
Do you know
for
what edging
months
is?
now.
Are you aware of edging without looking back at your phone and clicking the link?
Yes, I am aware of what edging is. It's bringing yourself to the edge of climax and then not climaxing.
Right, so that's not anywhere near what your gooning definition was.
So gooning is like when you can't think of anything else because you're edging so much.
That's not
No,
anywhere
it's
near
not
what's
what you
happening
just-
right here.
People have a goon streak now.
Can we move on? Because all right, first off, it wasn't just sitting there watching porn like a psychopath, not doing
Yeah.
anything, which is what you originally
Like
said.
Patrick fucking Bateman. What are you doing?
So anyways, to get back into this,
He's gooning. Yes.
we're getting more narration. He's talking about, all right, now back to the present, and you see him entering the school. It's like he basically has like orientation for like the new guys, and for whatever reason, like all the new people have like this different dress code. They all have to dress more like appropriately than the entirety of the rest of the school, and they wear these giant badges that like have their names on them. Like this basically says like
It says, my name is Will, stop and talk to me. Oh, stop and say hello. Which we may have a badge that says that on our website by the time this comes out.
maybe
Maybe.
we may have a busy weekend when we're talking of we of the entirety of the people who would make it. So we'll see what happens.
Check in 2 weeks.
Yeah, maybe a couple weeks. Yeah, they're sitting in this orientation, and his thing is like it's him and who he defines as the freaks, which are all nerdy type kids.
It's like a girl with glasses and like the freaks. It's like, guys, come on. Can we please get over this fucking trope?
But is this just like some sort of a weird coincidence that all of the new kids happen
Are
to
starting
be
on the
nerds?
same day?
Yeah, starting
Yeah.
on the same day. They're all happen to be nerdy kids. Like it's just a weird coincidence.
What's weird too, so they're in a comprehensive school. So the British school system is sort of specific. This is like in the UK, right? So I'm sure an Irish or English listener might get mad at me, but comprehensive school is a school you get into without having to take special exams, right? So like you take exams to see if you qualify to go to selective school. Like you're smarter, you go to like the better school. You're just like a regular fucking prole, you go to comprehensive school. So you'd think that the super nerdy people would have been good at the exams and not been at this school. But they don't give those people any, like, I don't know, it's confusing. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me somewhere, but this seemed confusing to me.
Yeah. And we learned early on that he was in a private school, and I think they financially, when his parents split up, it just couldn't be afforded anymore. And so he just kind of wound it up here.
And those are all public, like comprehensive and selective schools are public schools, but it's like a weird caste system to them.
So they're talking to one of the heads of the school, Mr. Gilbert. His first conversation with him as soon as they sit down is kind of his exceptions to this badge that he has to wear, because he's not a big fan of it. And he's basically saying like, hey, don't you think like it would be better if we didn't have to wear these things that basically single us out, as soon as we're new to the school? And Mr. Gilbert's kind of not happy with Will right off the bat being outspoken about how he feels about a certain thing. And they don't get off on the right foot like immediately.
Couldn't he just wear it while he leaves the office and then just take it off?
No, I think you're expected to wear it. It's like, Animal House, they wear like the freshman beanie. In Rock and Roll High School, they wear the class they're in's pin. I think it's like you're expected to, for freshmen or like new people, have to wear it. But also, Jay made a point earlier where it's like everyone looks like they're dressed different. Because my wife, when we were watching it, was like, how come their ties are so small? And I was like, oh, because most people are wearing the sweater. So you don't need the whole tie. Like, it's basically just the knot that's showing, right? It's almost like a dickie. But the kids have been there a while. It's like Will Smith turning his jacket inside out at his school. But the new kids are going to dress super conservative because they don't know the rules yet and they don't know how to bend them.
Yeah, everyone else in the school except them basically are in a much more dressed down state. So I didn't know if it was they just know the rules, or like if the expectations are different on your first day. Maybe your first day like does the uniform so you try harder.
Yeah, like most people don't have a blazer. They've got like a blue sweater.
Right. We kind of travel until Will walk into his first classroom after that orientation. And basically, as soon as he walks in, he's trying to, I don't know, just find a way to fit in. So he finds one of the kids when he's like, oh, am I in the right class? And immediately starts talking shit about like Mr. Gilbert, who he was just talking to, and mocking him for being like this big, huge, massive freak, and how he loves to suck on the headmaster's balls. And everyone kind of is going quiet. And he's like, he's right behind me, isn't he?
This did happen to me in high school once with one of our teachers who, no question, did not like me. But I got summoned to ask her a question. We're in the lunchroom. You're like, what did she want? Because she was walking towards me, and I was like, oh, she just wanted to like suck my dick or whatever. That she was walking, and that's what it like. I'll tell you who it was after. And then like turned around and was like, oh, hi. It was like so fucking awkward.
It's just like one of those situations in this where it's, you can just tell he's trying to fit in, and he's new, so he wants to be able to joke around with the other kids and not be lumped in with the freaks, quote unquote. So, he's kind of going in on Mr. Gilbert, just thinking that's going to be a relatable thing, and instantly finds himself in more trouble.
Yeah, but you can't try too hard on the first day.
But also, none of us were ever in that scenario. I mean, at work and stuff as adults, sure, but like as a teenager,
yeah, like I can't. It's not relatable because I've never had to deal with that as a kid.
Me either.
We've all been friends our entire fucking lives for the most part, right? Like, so I totally understand him doing this because you're just trying to fit in.
Because it's funny because when you think back to when you're a kid, it's not like there's all this trial and error, right? You just kind of naturally lump towards kids that you vibe with. And, so he's trying to do that, I guess, but like we did it young. Like we all started school together, basically. You know what I mean? So we're not all a part of this established group. You know what I mean? We've kind of found each other and established a group.
Yeah, I think we're pretty lucky that because we weren't, like, when I think of shows and we watch shows that are high school shows, we were not the popular kids by any stretch of the imagination, but we had enough people in our friend group that didn't matter. Like, it wasn't ever a big issue. There was like 10 of us, it's like, who gave a shit?
Which is funny because, like, in a lot of ways, I think that's what the Inbetweeners are, They're not quite the freaks. They're a step above the freaks, but they're not quite in with all the popular kids. So in many ways, like, you could say our group was, I guess, some sort of a
in-betweener
mishmash of what they're, having in this show.
I can see that, yeah.
I used to tell people, like, who didn't understand, because our group was, when we were growing up in school, we were very lucky. We had a very large group of friends. We weren't all like the same. We all like different things. And where a lot of the other groups, quote unquote, like the cliques, the typical high school tropes you'd have, I guess, you'd have the kids who played sports, the drama kids, and so on and so forth. And we kind of had like a little bit from every group and then some outliers. And I would always explain it to people who didn't know us. Like our group was like other, you know, like you couldn't like define us as like these guys, you know?
Yeah, we weren't even good at that.
Yeah, but how many groups produced a prom king?
Well, that one year, just one, but every year one of them does.
Just saying, prom king came from our group.
Am I 20 years and still reigning? Because I don't know if they ever brought back the prom king in our...
I don't know if you were the last ever. I don't know. I really don't know.
I'd like to think that I still have reign over the
last czar.
Yeah.
Well, if you decide to attend our reunion that's coming up
You know
in a
that's
couple
not going to
months.
happen.
Yeah, why see any of your
Would
friends?
I would love to see you. I would literally drive down to Boston and spend an entire day with all of you guys. Let's find a day and I will do it. I would love to do that. Why would I go see all of the people I haven't seen in 19, 20 years who I don't care about talking to?
It's like the only time I think you will see the amount of friends from our grade, like, you know, our old group. I think it's your best shot of ever seeing the most amount of them at one given time, period. Like there's no other situation where you're going to see that many of your friends at once unless someone dies at this point.
Sure, but a bunch of those people aren't my friends. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be weird. And again, nothing against them. I just like, I don't need to go fucking have a drink and like have to, I don't want to sit there and go, Maine, married, kid, 50 fucking times. That just sounds like a fucking marathon of
Well,
a
no, it's
nightmare.
not like set up like speed dating. You're generally hanging out with your group of friends and you're talking and then people
Then
kinda
why
mingle.
go? Just go to see your friends then.
Sure. No, I agree. And again, this is a conversation that's really meant for off podcast, but
Sure.
I will say again.
But this is a high school episode, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So now Will's in this weird situation with Mr. Gilbert. Mr. Gilbert looks over and finds the kid Simon who's in the class and basically says, hey, you're in the most classes with Will this semester or whatever it was. So you have to walk him around for the next week because he's going to be in the most classes with you anyways, which Simon obviously is not excited about, but the situation is what it is.
You can tell it's 2008 when he's going through his list of grievances for Will, and one of them is that his hair is a bit gay. Where it's like, holy shit, 2008.
Yeah.
And you know what's like unfair though? He's like, and the badge. And it's like, it's not like Will was like, ooh, because he didn't want to wear the badge. It's like he's stuck with it.
Like, some of those things were very genuinely, like, high school shallow. Like, his shoes, his blazer, whatever. But the badge, it's like, that's not his choice. He didn't come to school being like, I want to make a sweet badge. It says, everyone say hi to me.
The briefcase seemed a bit extreme.
Yeah.
But he kept getting picked on for the briefcase, and I was like, I could see that. That's a bit off.
Yeah, that you'd get picked on in high school for that. But I also think that it was, I believe, alluded to that he mentioned something about not having a backpack. Like, so I think.
Well, his mom got him the briefcase instead, I believe. Like, that was like.
Yeah, so I don't even blame that on him.
It's not his fault specifically. Like, when you look back to, you know, up till a certain age, like, we were products of what our parents bought us going into school. You can only do so much.
Yeah.
You might have had, now, I don't know, like, the parameters in these schools, so I assume with uniforms and stuff, there's only so much you could wear. As far as the briefcase goes, obviously kind of an interesting choice, but I mean, I could tell my mom, I want this backpack, but she could also say no and buy a different one, and I really can't do anything about it because I don't have the money to buy my own backpack, so, you know, what are you going to do?
And that was a status symbol, too. Like, I don't know if it still is, but when we were in high school, if you had the LL Bean expensive backpack with your initials embroidered into it, yeah, that was... Yeah, we talked about, like, because I went to the LL Bean factory and I saw the sad man just over and over embroidering backpacks. It was like, oh, man, I hope they're paying you well.
Did you get an S1E1, Joe?
No, I did not buy one. I mean, next time I'll go up, I will. It's summertime. I can't go there now. It's a fucking nightmare. You guys should all come up one day in the wintertime and we'll go to the LL Bean store. Because the LL Bean store is like an amusement park. It's like 9 buildings. There's like waterfalls. You can fish in it. You can like shoot guns. It's a fucking trip. But if you go in the summer, it's fucking a madhouse because it's a tourist town.
Well, maybe in the future for a giveaway, we'll get an LL Bean backpack and engrave or embroider the S1E1 on it for the initials and fill it with some goodies.
I love that idea. Let's definitely do that. It's like $100 idea.
Yeah,
but I love it.
it's like
Yeah.
Well, so hey, whoever wins, you better fucking wear that backpack.
Yeah, I want pictures like once a month of you doing something with that backpack, like picnics or something.
Yeah, it has to be out on the town. After that class gets out, we kind of flash forward a bit. We see Will walking down the hallway where he's basically just being berated by every single person he walks by.
I wanted to ask Nick if he enjoyed all the walk and talks in this episode.
It's very West Wingy.
Very West Wingy. Although nobody ever tells the president that he's a badge wanker or anything in the West Wing.
It would have been an interesting episode. I mean, I like just like the concept of a walk and talk. I mean, I think it just like it kind of distracts you, and I don't know. It's kind of indescribable, really. But I do like they do it a lot in and I think it was kind of an ode to the West Wing, but they did it a lot in Parks and Rec too.
Yeah, because you're in a government building. Veep as well sneaks a bunch of them in too, because I think they're trying to like pay homage to it.
Yeah, right.
One of the kids, he looked like he was like 9 or 10, and he just goes, "Nice badge, dickhead."
Yeah.
It was like every single kid. Like, I know like kids are mean in school, and it's got to be tough being the new kid, but like, wow, is everybody fucking terrible to this kid immediately.
I love this because if you look up the like trivia on this episode, they like didn't give any of those kids instructions. They were just like, make fun of this kid when he walks by. So I think those cutting remarks are even funnier when, you know, it's like briefcase wanker. Like someone just fucking said that, just saw him, and that's their first thought was. You're like, get that kid a writing gig. They are fucking funny.
Yeah, if nothing else, the Brits are good at a good insult for sure.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Sure. Yeah.
So now Will heads into the bathroom, and he says, you know, truth be told, the first day nerves it got to me. So I went for what turned out to be one of the more eventful shits of my life.
And everybody's Gordo flag pinged immediately.
Yeah.
Yep. I was just going to say, my ears perked up, and I was expecting, like, because I know Jay's going to get into the scene, but like all the kids come in, they all start talking and stuff. I was expecting him to drop like a monster dump.
I kind of was too. I like it was gonna get like uncomfortably loud, and then he was gonna be also known as the loud pooper or something like that.
Well, wasn't that the case with like one of the American Pies with like Shitbreak? Like, didn't he eventually like be in a situation where he like couldn't hold it and he had to like go in the public?
Yeah, I think that was why his name was that. Yeah,
his name was Shitbreak. Well, things I haven't thought about in 20 years. Holy fuck.
But that's what I was expecting.
Yeah. So Will heads into the stall and he's sitting there, and while he's in there, that's when we have like the other kids walk in. Simon, who's like the kid we saw in the class earlier, and then the other two guys that are in like the main crew of this show. As we can see, even without seeing future episodes, we know that the crew is these four. So it's going to eventually be Will with Simon, and then Jay and Neil are the other two kids.
Side note: these haircuts, my goodness. Like, I know they're of the times, and also
it's a combo. It's a different time, and it's a different country. So like they are very of the times and stuff for there.
Especially the kid with the Johnny Rotten haircut.
Yeah, yeah. The one though that later on they talk about his hair, but his mother is talking to him about like the gel in his hair. That haircut is wildly weird. It's like
the ski ramp.
He's got a weird hairline, and then it's up to like a lot of us did just like the, you know, up in front type thing, right? But his had like literally like 6 strands of hair, like in one little loop, and then it was the weirdest fucking. It was really distracting.
It's gel, because gel is like weirdly thick, and it makes your hair like string out. You know what I mean? So like it's not like if you like hairspray or something, it would have looked probably better, or
yeah, right,
like a pomade or something.
They're walking in, and Jay's telling the other two about how he's like good at shagging now. Like, I guess he spent his summer practicing. Like, that's what he spent his summer doing, was just fucking girls.
As we all did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Neil's like asking him about it. Like, how do you do it best? He's like, you just go like really deep, like real, like right up to the balls. And then Neil's like, do you put the balls in? He's like, and this is when you get like, this is what like kind of the tell is that like Jay's not really like, some girls like that.
Which is funny because then you see Jay with a bunch of porno mags later, so like he should know the balls never enter the equation in that way.
I mean, depending, some magazines you might see that.
I mean, he's reading Club International, so I don't think so, but
I'm not familiar with Club International. Is that like a fancy one?
No, it's just like it's one of like, so Club International is one of like the older British porn mags. Club is the US version. You know when you go to like a 7-Eleven and you're like buying fucking cigarettes, whatever, and behind the counter you see like a sealed porn. It's like 3 magazines and 1 DVD, and you're like, who buys that? Well, if you ever buy that, the magazines that are in there are like these weird offshoot magazines. Club is like a US porno one. There's like Cherry. There's like a bunch of like these weird offshoot ones that were like, there was European and US versions. But at this point, if you're going to buy them, they literally only exist in those like sealed packs behind the counter at a convenience store with like 1 DVD, 4 trading cards, 3 magazines, $2, like, because they're trying to make some money.
Dare I ask, how do you know that?
Because I've bought them before. Why did I not know that?
3 magazines and a DVD?
And trading cards.
Yeah. Some days that, I mean, this is a long time ago, but I have bought those before. You're drinking, you're with your buds, you're at the store getting smokes or something late at night, and you're like, I'm going to get this and see what's in there. It's super funny. Also, the DVD was always terrible. The magazines were always terrible. But that's where you'd find a magazine like Club or Club International.
Holy shit, Tracy Lord's rookie card.
Long Gone Silver.
I mean, to be fair, as somebody who does not need to own any porn mags or anything in their life, I would love to own porn trading cards. That sounds amazing, and we should probably look into licensing that. You know how, like, when we got trading cards as a kid, you could flip the backs over and they make like a giant puzzle? You could do one that was like John Holmes, where you have to put them all together to make the giant dong. That's a fucking $1 million idea.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I was with you in the beginning.
What if you had a cum expansion?
The cum expansion pack?
Yeah, so now a couple other...
I was going to say, do they come with stickers? Because sticky, but...
So as they continue talking, a couple other boys walk into the bathroom, one of which we find out later his name's Mark, him and another kid. And Mark goes up to the urinal, and Simon's also there, and it's one of those like open trough-style urinals.
Yeah, it's not a urinal, it's a trough.
We've talked about these in the past, like the big open one. I don't know if those are still popular there or not. Like here, they're very seldom seen, but we've all experienced them.
Yeah, if like you're not in like a really old falling apart baseball park or like an old factory, those do not exist anymore.
Yeah. I mean, but hey, they're efficient though. Most efficient, like space to pee ratio.
That's true, I guess. Yeah.
Because one person, one toilet. You can only do 4 or 5, say.
Yeah, but they're not at a baseball stadium. They're at a school. There's not like a rush.
Also, yeah, the efficiency is based on how much you want to hug up against the people next to you.
You gotta go. You gotta go. I don't care.
I mean, the way I always looked at it is it's a very scant amount of people who find people peeing to be a turn on. Like, there's those weird things like, is he going to look at my dick? But like, dude, even if that person is into dicks, probably isn't into watching you piss. Like, it's a weird hang up people have. Like, pissing is such a utilitarian thing, and guys get so weird. Like, some guys get so weird about that. Like, I don't want to be near another guy. But like, dude, everyone's just doing this for like 30 seconds and walking away. There's no weirdness there.
I will say every now and again you're in a bathroom and there's a dude who is just standing way too far back, and you spin around, you're like, come on, guy.
That's just showing off. You're like, it's so long, I gotta stand back here. Like, oh, come on, buddy.
And then there's the guy that drops his trousers to the floor.
I would pay so much money to find that picture from that dude's camera. So much money.
It's been probably at least a couple of years. So a very brief version of that story is, when we were in our younger 20s, I used to think it was very funny to go to urinals in public restrooms and drop my pants like I was a first grader. That was funny for me for a while. I mean, you look back and you could easily get arrested for that. When you're like 20, you're not thinking about it the same way. We were at like a rest stop. I forget heading where, but we had like a drive ahead of us, and somebody from like the stall that was like behind where I was peeing, like just all of a sudden I just see like a camera from under the stall like come out and like snap a photo, and like the hand goes back in. And that was the last time I ever did that. So
if you're for some reason listening to this podcast and you're the person that took that picture, I will gladly pay for it.
When I worked at Gazelle, we would check every phone that came in because people just didn't know to erase their phones back then, because like 15 years ago. And like you'd find all sorts of crazy shit, like sex pictures and everything. But like those are the kind of pictures that like, because like you become desensitized, like, oh, look at some girl's boobs, like who gives a shit? But like if I saw a picture of some dude's bare ass peeing at a trough from under a urinal, it would have been like my band's next t-shirt. Like I would have saved that and like used anything I could with it. It's so much better.
Mark looks over at Simon and he's like, "You looking at my cock?" He's like, "Oh, well, good one." He's like, and then he just tells him to fuck off. So Simon and them leave.
But also, what is he doing here? He's just looking at him weird while he pees. I can't quite gauge the moment here.
Simon was like looking over at Mark, but I think he's nervous by him because
Nervous
Mark's
and
like
admiring him?
I don't think he was like looking at his dick, but I think he's just
No.
like Mark is known as like the school bully, so he's just nervous around him, so he just doesn't know how to like act because he's just on edge.
Yeah, that's a good assessment. That's what I got too. You know, he was afraid of getting shit beaten out of him or the piss beaten out of him.
That's still just an eyes on the road scenario.
So now Simon and Jay and Neil all leave, and that leaves Mark and his buddy. While they're in there, they happen to notice like from the stall that like the briefcase like on the floor. So they both climb up on either side of the stall and just start snapping photos of Will as he's taking a shit. And you're seeing like on the phones, like all the pictures being like taken like on the phones, like from up top at him. That fades right into like a flyer that's now being hung on the corkboard in the school. And it says, "Hello, I'm Will and I'm doing a shit."
It's one of those things that's funny, but again, 20 years later, you know, or 15 years later, you're like, that would be revenge porn. That would, like, it's underage, like the amount of trouble you would get into. Like, we didn't have cell phones with cameras. Those didn't exist when we were in high school. And also, thank fucking Satan, no, not with cameras.
No, they did, but they were like blurry, like 0.5 megapixel cameras. Like,
I don't remember anybody having a cell phone with camera when we were in high school.
At the end of high school is like when I got like a Razor phone. That's like the upgrade from the Nokias. Like sophomore year for us. So we graduated in 2004 for those of you guys listening. Right at the end of our run of high school is like right when those like picture phones are starting to come out.
Yeah, I thought it was later than that. I certainly didn't have one. I mean, I was a late adopter to better phones.
Joe, you just got an iPhone.
Oh, it's been like 7 years, but that's still pretty late compared to when everybody else had a phone that was a smartphone.
What was your phone before the iPhone? Like before you converted to smart, like what was your phone?
It wasn't a flip, but it was a side flip. So like the whole screen pushed up and there's a whole keyboard under it.
Oh, okay. All right.
So like basically like the last good phone they ever made before people were like, we don't want Blackberries and that shit, we want iPhones.
Before I had my first smartphone was like the original G1, the original Google phone, like the first Android phone, I think it was. After that, like that had like the keyboard component to it. And I tried hanging on to that as long as possible. So there was like a few smartphone like generations that came out after that, like a couple at least. And then eventually like I had to just cut ties because the couple phones that still existed that had keyboards, like they were like almost deliberately making them shitty. So they were trying to wean everybody off of them.
Which is funny. You weren't on the BlackBerry train, were you?
No, I never had a BlackBerry, no.
Yeah, I loved Blackberries, man. They were.
But when I got the Google phone, the G1, like that's when I first got one. So I was like I got very used to having that keyboard component and I was like afraid to break away from it.
Yeah, it was HTC, wasn't it?
The original G1?
Yeah, I think it was the HTC G1.
I don't remember.
Couldn't tell you.
But yeah, I really did miss the keyboard. I still miss the keyboards, honestly. I'm surprised they've tried to make them, but they haven't done it the right way yet. And we probably just don't need them anymore.
No, I mean, now you have like Bluetooth extension keyboards that like you can take, like little mini keyboards that you can connect to your phone, which I mean, I guess, but who the hell's using that?
As an iPhone user, the hardest thing for me was when they were like, they don't have the middle home button anymore.
Yeah, I always wondered why Apple did the weird things they do with their buttons, like not having them, or like even like not even like a physical button, but like they don't have like back buttons. Like it's always somewhere else.
Yeah, you're used to it.
I mean, the biggest thing they ever did to make me mad was they made it so you can't charge your phone and still have your headphones plugged in at the same time.
Yeah.
That was really tough for like, I can't sleep and my phone's almost dying. I'm going to like listen to something or watch a movie and then you can't.
Well, now you can Bluetooth, but that's a different story. But also, no, the biggest thing that Apple did that pissed me off was put that fucking U2 album on my phone without my permission.
I mean, they will never be. I'm pretty sure that's what killed Steve Jobs.
Well,
Bono killed Steve Jobs.
Science would say otherwise, but
I mean, to be fair though, in that scenario, I would have taken it the other way. Fuck you, Bono. Fuck you, Bono.
They literally. I don't want to get into too much of this because we have so much more of the show to talk about. We've already been going on for a while. But the outrage that people had about that, and like I can understand, I guess, for like phone storage purposes, but all they did was gifted everybody a free album.
A terrible fucking album.
No, and it wasn't about that. It was the intrusiveness of the act. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It had anything to do with what it was. The fact that they did it that way was what.
It is 2024. If I go on my Apple TV and I pull up my iTunes, and I have not synced in a million years since I haven't had an iPod, I still have that fucking U2 album on there, and I can't delete it. That is infuriating, because it didn't show up on my iPod anymore. It made me able to delete it from what I thought was my hard drive, but it was always lurking in the background. It'll never go away. Fuck you, Apple. Fuck you, U2. Fuck you, Bono. And fuck you, The Edge. What the fuck name is...
Yeah, you guys are loyal to Apple until the days you die. But anyways, so now we have another walking scene with Will going down the hallway, again being just berated by all the children. Someone goes, "You're gonna die here, Will." I'm like, wow, this is fucking really aggressive. These people have known him for all of 2 hours, by the way.
That one's like dark and ominous, though. I really appreciated that. "You're gonna die here" is like pretty dark.
So Will eventually runs into Simon, who's, the guy who's supposed to be helping him anyways. And he's telling him, "Hey, I'm trying to find the common room. Like, can you help me find it?" It's like, he's like, first he tells him not really, but he's like, "You know what? Follow me, but like keep a good distance." So he's like, "Yep, okay." And then you just see him like, 40 feet behind him, like just kind of following him over there.
He waits a good long time before he starts walking again.
He respects the rules. We cut to them all in that common room, and you kind of see Simon sitting with the other guys we saw earlier. And then now Will's with the freaks, quote unquote. And he's like trying to wave over to Simon to see, try to establish that like bit of friendliness, but Simon's still trying to keep a distance from him.
I mean, you feel bad for Will at this point. Like you just feel bad. Like he's doing everything he can.
You can and you can't though, because also like he's the one deciding that these other kids aren't good enough for him, right? Like what if they're all super nice kids? But
I do hope that later in the show, the quote unquote freaks get like
some sort of redeeming.
Yeah, their redemption or like they're just whatever, I feel bad for these people who like that one guy looks to him in the beginning. He's like, "We can be friends." And he's like, "I don't want to be friends with you." Well, that's so shitty. Fuck you, Will. That's a hard way to start wanting to like a character.
Yeah. So now you cut over to like Simon, who's sitting with Jay and Neil, and they're talking about like tonight, like this thing. And it's, so basically it's like a tradition at that school that like on the first day of school, they all head over to like some pub and grab a drink, even though they're all, 16 years old, they're all underage.
Yeah, but the drinking age is 18, so easier to get around.
Yeah, much easier to get a fake ID at that point. And, there's always ways around it, right? Like people find a way. And if it's a tradition at the school, you could tell how easy it can be to get an ID.
That must be harder now too, though, right? Like whenever you get carded, most times now, they don't look at it, they just scan it.
Yeah.
Right. So like you have to have an ID now, like a fake ID that scans this info, not just that like has a blurry photo of someone who sort of looks like you. You know what I mean?
Right. Simon's saying like, "I don't know if I'm going to go. I'm kind of tired." And Jay's like, "Oh, tired from what? Fucking wanking 3 times a day?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's it. I've had 210 wanks and my cock looks like a fucking pepperoni."
I love that where I was like, did he say pepperoni? Like I rewound it a bunch of times. It was like, your cock does not look good if it looks like a stick of pepperoni. I mean, like it's good in one way, I guess, right? Pepperoni sticks are usually fairly large and rigid, but
I don't think you'd ever want your dick to look like a pepperoni. And then that's when the girl Carly walks up and she's like, "Whose cock looks like what?" And nothing. Because I don't know, I don't know if this was established there and I missed it or not, but Simon seems to have a thing for Carly, but he won't admit it.
I think this is where they establish it.
So Carly's asking Simon like, "Hey, you gonna be at the pub tonight?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know." He's like, "I'm sort of more into clubs than pubs." And then one of the other guy goes, "Yeah, gay clubs."
That was funny. That would be a retort that we would do to each other
when we're younger, for sure. And then she's like, "Hey, do you have aftershave on?" "Oh, it's just like Lynx." And then she like bends over to like smell them. And then when she does, you see like a little bit of the middle of her bra, like from her shirt.
Yeah.
But like he catches like a glimpse of that.
Pops a boner.
It was one of those things that if you think back, like I wouldn't say like when I was 16 necessarily, but like a little younger than that, when you're talking like the end of middle school, like early high school, like those like core puberty years, and you would like see like little things like a strap of a bra, girls fucking a little bit of her underwear, the girl sitting in front of you. Like that was like such a like thing when you're that age and you're growing up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just
It's not something that like at this age I would be like, oh, some of her bra. But Joe, you're like shaking your head. No, like when you were that age, I feel like that was like stuff that like all the boys in class would like point out to one another.
All I can literally think about is in health class, there was a girl who sat in front of me who was always wearing the exact same thong that always stuck up that was in bandana print. And like, so I called her bandana thong. And I didn't want to see that thong every day. And I saw the same one every day. And that's my weird one high school memory of girls' underwear. I don't think about that. No. I mean, I guess I'm sure at the time.
Honestly, I don't have like, and you would think you would have vivid memories of that, right? Because
I don't have like specifics. I think that'd be weird to cling on to like an individual memory of a certain girl, like
especially with you in no incognito mode, you get yourself in trouble.
No, but I do remember I remember like that age and just kind of like the guy next to you and like, you know, someone would tap you on the shoulder and like point and you go like, oh shit. Like
classic Seinfeld, get a good peek Costanza.
Yeah, for sure. And that would definitely cause the next thing to happen, which is him popping a boner.
But Gordo, as you mentioned, just in this case, for Simon, catching a little bit of glimpse of bra, like gave Simon a boner. And
who's boner?
He's in this weird situation where she's like, hey, you heading over to class? He's like, oh, I'm going to sit here for another minute. And then, when she leaves, like, Jay's like, what the hell are you doing? Why did you walk with her? Like, what do you have, a boner or something? And then he's like, oh my God, you really do have a boner. And then this is one of his best friends, but I guess the supreme dickhead move. It's like one thing to fuck with your friends, but to like put them in a traumatizing situation, he jumps up on the couch and announces to the entire room, hey everyone, Simon has a boner.
It's insane for me to hear you say that because this is something that any one of us would have done to any one of us in high school.
You guys did do this. Hold on. You guys did do this to me with the fucking crease of my pants that never was a boner, but you guys would purposely sit there and say, oh, Gordo, you got a boner when it was a crease in my pants. And it still happens to this day. And sometimes I look at the crease of my pants and I go back and I get embarrassed. So thank you. Core memory unlocked, the crease of my pants.
If anyone, we've mentioned the show already, if anyone wants to go back to our first episode of when we covered Curb Your Enthusiasm, dealt with a similar problem.
The whole episode's called The Pants Tent. But yeah, this is how we all were with each other. So it's weird for me to hear you be like, that seems mean. It's like, dude, it's all we did to each other.
We did that kind of stuff internally. I don't think we brought that out to outside of our
just
group
in the lunchroom in front of everybody.
Yeah,
just like this.
I don't know, man. I think we did. I think you tried to like whitewash a little bit of
No, well also we're older and like not everything's like clung into my brain, but
sure. And also like this kind of thing you would never do now, but we certainly did then.
Oh no, I probably would now I probably
actually I do it more now, yeah.
Yeah, now more so. If we were fucking like all like out to lunch and one of you popped a fucking random awkward outside boner, I'd be like, what the fuck's wrong? I probably would call attention to it.
All right, now I'm going to take like Blue Chew when we do meet up. And I'm just going to spend the whole day rock hard and miserable waiting for you to notice.
Everyone races over to see Simon's boner, which kind of an interesting situation. Hey, everyone, Simon's got a boner. Oh, I got to see this. I don't quite understand that logic, but that's what's happening here. And Will walks up and he's kind of taking advantage of the situation now that Simon's at a low point. He's like, oh, this is my opportunity to make friends with him. He's at an all-time low.
I mean, you strike when the iron's hot, right?
So he's like, hey, you heading over to class? He's just like, you see Simon, like, he can't even speak. He's so traumatized at the moment. He's like, I'll save you a seat.
I mean, you got to give Will the credit of being like, I can see the moment that I can get in, right? Like,
he's persistent. And then we get like Simon, Jay, Neil all walking outside a little bit later. And you have Will walk up.
This is a weird thing that really triggered a high school memory for me. Where like, you're in school all day, but you're not in the same classes with everybody. You don't necessarily have the same lunch with everybody. But we all had a place we all went to, especially in high school, after school. And the act of walking out of school and that like feeling of freedom, where like, this day is done, we can go do whatever we want now. And being with all your friends, like, weirdly brought me back to, like, oh, we're going to this weird, the corner that we stand on outside of the school. And those poor people who, like, just bought a nice house and were like, it's near the high school, it shouldn't be that bad, and didn't realize that, like, oh, this is the corner where everybody smokes cigarettes for 2 hours after school is my front lawn. I'm like, what am I going to do about it? I bought a house next to the high school.
You know what? That's an interesting point because I never really thought about this. They never complained as far as I know.
I think they knew that, like, it was a futile effort, right? Like,
Yeah.
you bought a house here, and that's part of it.
What are you going to do where you chose to buy a house next to the school? Like,
The sidewalk is technically not your property.
Yeah, we never defaced their property or anything.
we never did anything bad. Yeah, we hung out for a little bit, and then we all kind of went to wherever we're going next eventually. That was just kind of where you hang out for your first maybe half hour after school or whatever. Yeah, it's funny, Joe. And we were talking earlier, like, with the reunions and stuff like that, and I'm a very, like, nostalgic person, in general. Like, I like kind of, I don't live in the past, but, I think fondly of it. Still being, like, or being back in the town we grew up in now, and, you're more removed from it. You're not really here often. Like, for me, and I don't know with the other two, Nick, you're in town, Gordy, you're not far away. You drive by those spots, and, like, you kind of, like, those memories do kind of, like, flash in your head every once in a while, just driving by a familiar spot and, places we used to hang out and things like that. And it's, it's kind of, it's the nice thing about being in the same area. Like, you drive by those places where we would meet up every day, and, those little memories trigger.
It's funny you say that too, because Joe is just talking about the corner, because that's what we called it. We called it the corner.
Yeah.
The biggest spot I get for, like, that nostalgia kick is when we hung out at the parking lot.
Yeah.
We were not a creative bunch. We were just like, well, this is what we're gonna call it. We could have named it. We could have been cool and named it. But I mean, even that, like, we had the pit or the ditch,
the gas station,
just like just very non-descriptive things. But yeah, the parking lot where we spent most of our teens. No, yeah, just basically our teens. We weren't there early in our 20s. Yeah, you just, I don't know. I feel like I drive by it and I can see us all there still.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing about that, not living in a place you're from, too, is like if you're around town, like we came down, we're in the town next to our town, and there was a bunch of construction happening because they were, like, building the casino or whatever in Revere. Then I was like, oh, I know what to do. We just go up in here and do whatever, blah, blah. And then, like, up here, I have no idea where I am ever. Where I'm like, if Waze went down, I'd be like, I'm pulling over the side of the road and I'm sleeping the night because I have no idea where the fuck I am. But, like, you grow up in a place and you know everything and the back ways to do everything. It's strange for the first time in my life being in some place where, like, I don't necessarily always know where I am. Like, you could drop me anywhere in Boston, I could figure out my way back home. If you drop me anywhere here, I'm like, I don't have a fucking clue, and there's probably not Uber or cell service, so I'll just die in the woods, I guess. Cool.
You could always take a Moober.
It takes so long, though.
Yeah, that's how I feel actually here. Like when I first moved and I live in Boston proper, and but I live in an area where, like, I didn't know it. I didn't hang out here. Like, I just figured it out after 4 years.
Yeah, your part of town, like, I only know the Mass Ave, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Or Com Ave.
But I can now tell you all the back roads because I drive on them all the time.
List them all right now.
Okay, fine. You can go down Washington.
Anyway, so
Jay, that was the best interruption you've ever done. Thank you.
Yeah, so to get back into this, because they are doing their post-school walkout, and when Will meets up with the rest of them, they're all talking. First of all, giving him shit about the briefcase. Because, again, I think rightfully so, because the briefcase thing is weird. And the topic of, like, tonight comes up because Will's catching wind that everyone's going to be going to this, bar tonight, that's the plan. And he's like, hey, what time are we going? He's like, Jay's like, you can go whenever you want. You're not going with us. But they talk about where it is, and it comes up like, Simon's worried, what if we don't get served? Carly's going to think I'm a loser. And one of them's like, yeah, she'd be right. And it's like, she might not get served, though, either. And he's like, nope, girls always get served. As soon as they get tits, they get served.
That line really fucking killed me, by the way. I thought that was so funny. That's just a teenage kid thing to say.
But honestly, I mean, we lived through that, too. It was true. I mean, that's true in America. That's
true everywhere, yeah. Like, girls
age quicker.
No, not that. It's just like the preferential treatment of that stuff because guys want to.
They would get, girls had a much easier time getting into bars and shit underage than, like, we ever could have.
Yep.
But I also love the idea, too, where he's like, she'll think I'm a loser if I don't get served underage. Or it's like, no, like, there's also that part, like, and I get it, because that's how you think when you're that age. But you're like...
She would understand the real situation, yeah, because she's going in with the same nerves. Although she kind of has an ace in the hole. She knows she's going to get served.
Yeah, she's got the older boyfriend. That's a funny thing too about the liquor age in the UK being 18. That makes high school so different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because for any of our UK fans listening or people abroad who aren't in America, it's 21 across the board in the United States. And you get out of school when you're 18. But there's plenty of people who are 18, who are seniors in high school, dating younger people, right? So like you have or older friends, right? So it would be way easier for us to get booze in that scenario. You had to like know somebody and like do some fucking work in high school when we were growing up because you had to know somebody who was 21. And now as a person who's older, you're like, I wouldn't buy beer for a kid. Are you fucking shitting me? I can't believe how many times somebody just did the amount of legal trouble you can get in for that now.
Jay's letting them know too that like, well, I'm going to get served because I have a fake ID. As they continue talking is when we see Will's mom pull up. And she's like in the car, like waiting for him. And he's like, I told her not to pick me up. And they all look at her. It's like, what, is that your mom? And Jay's like, I'd fuck her. And Will's like, thank you.
What's your response to that? Thank you is probably
he's like, I would though. He's like, wouldn't you? And he's like, well, she's my mom. So no. Well, what if she wasn't your mom? Yeah, but she is my mom. It's like, there's no way you can't answer that question. It's like, even.
No.
It doesn't matter, like, if your mom is, like, a model. Like, you can't say, if she wasn't my mom, I would. There's no way your brain can detach the fact that it's your mom.
Neither of them are winning that argument.
Yeah.
Right.
He says, like, can we stop talking about my mother's vagina? Maybe I'll see you tonight. He's like, no, you're not invited unless maybe if you bring your mom.
I thought that was funny. You're not invited unless you bring your mom.
I love that, too, that the 16-year-old kid's, like, the idea of a 16-year-old hitting on a like woman old enough to have a 16-year-old and having that woman be like, you know what, maybe I will fuck this child. Like, that's just another like weird kid fantasy thing. Or like, what do you think could ever possibly happen in this scenario?
It's funny too, like after that when Will's driving with his mom and like she's asking about the first day of school, like she's very lenient, you know, because he's being honest that like, hey, like I might go to the pub with some friends tonight. It's like, oh, you have friends, you know, and like she's like excited with that. I guess, you know, he was bullied in his last school. So I think she's just, you know, being maybe more lenient than the other parent, just knowing that he's going to do whatever it takes to be accepted.
I think this is like when Milhouse's parents break up and he's like driving the car through the house, smashing stuff. And she's like, okay, my perfect little angel. Like it's a divorce, it's a bad scenario. You're just trying to give them the space.
I think like with anything and like parenting's no different, right? You just have to, there's no like set way, and like what may have been her rules before might get a little curved when she understands like he's in a situation where he kind of needs this. So
Yeah.
if by being a little okay with him going to the pub a couple of years before he should might help him get some friends when he's brand new to this place, then you know what? That's fine.
And also I imagine she's leaning a little bit on past experience too. Like she probably went to the pub in high school with her. I mean, like you're trying to like not restrict like the natural order of things that, you know, should happen.
And then you kind of get like this little montage from that car scene too, where you see like everybody kind of prepping for the night. You see like Jay grabbing his ID and then Neil asking his dad for cash. And it's funny because his dad was like, well, all right, here's 10 pounds, but like promise that you're not going to spend it on the fruit machines. And he's like, I can't do that, Dad. I'm sorry.
Am I to assume these are just like digital scratch tickets?
No, it's a slot machine.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So-
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get like
Yeah.
the cherries or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of my favorite songs of all time is a song by Tenpole Tudor. It's a very British song called Three Bells in a Row. And the whole thing is like, I put a quid in the fruit machine and like how his night went downhill. So this is like a very English colloquial way to call the slot machine. It's either that or Lemmy always called them a one-armed bandit because you like pull the one thing down.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, fruit machine's also like, it's just a very, and fruity, he says later, which is like an even more,
I don't want to sound dumb, and I know this is something I could look up and should have looked up earlier, but like pounds versus quid, like what's that? Where's the conversion there?
it's the same thing. It's like saying a buck for a dollar.
Two different ways of saying the same thing. So 1 pound is 1 quid.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know if like it was like $1.00 type of thing. Okay.
And from the last record order I did to the UK last week, currently it's about $1.35, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So he gets about $10 from his dad. Jay, I think, well, he asked to borrow 20 from his mom, who's yelling up at him as he's looking at that porno mag we were talking about earlier.
And then Simon's mom here is, I'm sad Ferg's not on this episode because she is Scrooge's girlfriend in A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, when they go back in time and he's like, oh, it's old Fozziewig's Christmas party. And he's like in love with the girl and did the song that they weirdly cut out of the movie. I don't even think that song's even on the Disney Plus version anymore.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to look back.
Robin Trower, I think her name is, but she's Clara, Scrooge's girlfriend in A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Oh, no shit. I didn't pick up on that at the time. That's funny. I wasn't really looking up many people because like all the main kids are mainly just known from this and don't have a lot of other credits. So it was like, I didn't even think about like side characters and stuff after that.
Also very British TV, like everybody's been like in one episode of Doctor Who, because that's the UK equivalent to here, where it's like, well, they were in one of every version of Law and Order. Like you look up like some character actor who's been around here for 30 years, they were like in SVU, in Criminal Intent, they were in every Law and Order you can imagine.
But were they in Mantis?
No, we have not found anybody in Mantis in so long, and I've tried. I really thought Amen was going to be the ticket to a Mantis character.
We talked about this before. There are easy paths to direct link Mantis. There's a couple shows with a couple main people from that show. Simon's mom walks up to him as he's getting ready, and she's like, "It's a lot of gel in your hair. Like it smells strong too." And now he's freaking out because he's almost looking at this not like it's a date with Carly, but it's like that date adjacent, like you're out having fun and she'll be there and you'll be there. So, he wants to look presentable and he's just kind of worried about that situation. Good. Yeah. So now he's super self-conscious about all the shit in his hair. And he's like, there's no time to wash it out now. So what the fuck am I going to do? But as he's freaking out on his mom, also make sure to ask if he can borrow 20 quid.
Oh, yeah, because you don't want to show up with no money, with no quid.
And you get the narration from Will right after he asks. And by borrow, we meant spend and never give back. Next stop, the pub. And then we get that end of scene 1 or end of part 1 screen that popped up.
That seems unnecessary in a 21-minute show.
Well, it's funny. We've talked about this before. If you remember, a lot of British shows that we've covered in the past look like they're kind of stylized that way. I don't know how the commercials break, if there's just like one break in the middle. But we've seen a lot of shows kind of like right in that center cut like that.
That's a good point. I wonder if that's how it is, where like you get uninterrupted for 10 minutes and then 5 minutes of commercials straight. And
yeah, I don't know exactly, but I definitely remember other shows we've covered that have had that hard break like in the middle like that.
If you're from the UK and we know that there are UK listeners, can somebody message us?
Yeah, and I feel like we have asked that in the past, so we should probably just retain knowledge. It would probably be better.
Well, the problem is here is that we retain a lot of knowledge. It's just all fucking useless and
useless knowledge. Yeah,
helpful to anything we do in our lives.
We cut into the start of part 2. It starts with that narration from Will again, and it goes, "My plan to make friends was working. Little by little, I was wearing them down." And you see Simon and like the other 2 guys meeting up, and Will showing up like all in front of that pub at the same time. And when Will gets there, he's like, "Hi guys," and it's like, "Oh, not him."
I was like, too, that he says, "Sorry, I'm late." That's like such a sweet thing to say because he thinks he's part of the crew already.
And was Jay was like fingering your mom?
I left way too stupidly hard at asking if he was late for fingering his mom. I don't know what like childish button that pressed for me, but I laughed really fucking hard at it. And then his plan also is we just go in and start buying drinks, and then the quote unquote gash will stop dropping their knickers. Like the fucking craziest shit to say. It's so fucking funny. I think he says that they'll line up in an orderly queue to drop their knickers also. They'll be waiting in line to fuck them because they're at the bar.
So now Simon's
true.
So Simon's still super nervous about this idea of not being served in front of Carly. And, says that this is the girl that I've lusted after since I was 8. And Neil's like, "You fancy 8-year-old girls?" It's like, "No, Neil, our families are friends. We were both 8 at the time." He's like, "Well, you still fancied an 8-year-old girl."
Another moment where I was like, this feels like the most us at the time conversation ever.
They all head inside and this place is dead.
This is the kind of bar I love, though. You walk into a bar and there's just like 2 working people having a I hate my life after work drink. That's a bar that's enjoyable to be at.
So it's quiet, and at this point, like, it's not even flagging in my head that, they could be at the wrong place or anything. I was like, oh. And they're not thinking of, they just think they're the first ones there. Like, oh, we're hardcore. Like, we're here to drink longer than everybody else. So Jay's going to take care of everything since he has the fake ID and grabs everyone's orders and then heads up there. he's trying to like come off a little older. So he walks up to the bartender. He's like, "Oi, bruv." And he's like, "Yes, bruv." He's like, 3 lagers and a Guinness. He's like, "Do you got any ID?" And he hands him the ID. He's like, "This is an Australian driving license, right?" He's like, "Yep." He's like, "So you're Australian?" "Yep, that's right, mate." And then he like kicks into his Australian accent.
He doesn't do a bad Australian accent after this, actually.
No.
He actually sounds, when he says his date of birth, it's like convincing enough. The bartender's like, fuck, all right, sure.
So he goes to order 3 lagers and a Guinness. And he's like, "Well, are the other drinks for your mates?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I'm not serving them unless they have ID as well." So then you basically have Jay heading over to the table with just that 1 lager for himself. It's like, "Where's our drinks?" He's like, "Oh, did you want drinks? Like, you better go and fucking get them then."
That must be the best feeling, though, in that situation where you're like, I fucking win.
So now Will's looking at this as a situation where, like, oh, maybe this is my chance that I can step up a little bit here and, like, kind of, gain the admiration of the other guys. He's like, "Don't worry, guys, I got this." So he goes up to the bar and he goes, "Hey, good evening. Could I have 3 pints, please?" And he's like, "Do you have any proof of age?" He's like, "You have my word."
He says, "You have my word," so confidently. Dude, it's like kind of almost sweet the way he says it.
This reminds me of, by the way, a friend of ours when we were in high school. If you guys remember, I think a few of you guys went to an adult bookstore and he tried walking in and he didn't have.
Look at my tattoos.
He was underage, yeah. So she's like, "Do you have ID to come in?" He's like, "I have a tattoo." And she's like, "Unless it's a tattoo of your birthday, you can't come in."
Also, best response. So quick and so fucking good.
Will's trying to tell the bartender, like, "My father left my mother. I'm forced to go to this comprehensive school. Like, I've attached myself to a fairly average group and I'm trying to make new friends and just make life bearable. You just be like understanding and just maybe even give me like 3 non-alcoholic lagers and like we just won't tell anybody about it." And he goes, "I can't serve you if you're underage." I'll be honest, the way he like broke down and like, "Hey dude, here's the situation." I thought the bartender was either A, gonna give him non-alcoholic beers because I didn't know that'd be an issue, or just go, "You know what, fuck it, kid," and give him beer. And I thought that's where this was going at that moment as he's saying everything.
We're at a point now too where they've made non-alcoholic beers that are 0.0% too, right? Like maybe at this point you probably only had like, at least in the US, O'Doul's, right? Everything's like 0.5%. Look, you'd have to fucking drink a gallon of it in one shot to get even a sort of buzz. But now there's literally 0.0. I always wonder about this. Like if I was driving and I was drinking a Heineken 00 and you got pulled over by a cop, like what's the move here, right? Like that guy, if we had this situation now, the guy could be like, "Look, here's 4 fucking non-alcoholic 0.0s. I'll pour them into pint glasses. Tell your friends they're real beer. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, I really thought, I thought there was a chance for, like I said, that or just give him real beer. I thought he was going to be like, "You know what, kid, like go ahead."
You can have 1. Like how much trouble can you do with 1 beer, right?
It's weird because we see this in other situations too. Simon, for being like a bit of an outcast and, someone who's kind of been picked on, not even in the school, but before the school, he's very like confident. He has like an air of confidence to him that like you wouldn't normally get out of this type of character.
I wonder if there's more of that as the show goes on and you get more of his backstory, because you don't see anything about him, how he was in his school and like what the class system was there and what his friends were like.
And then this was interesting. I didn't know if this was like a real rule or not, but Will goes, "All right, you've driven me to this." And he's like, "The law states 16-year-olds can legally drink cider, perry, or mead in a pub if they're eating a meal. So I'll have 3 pints of cider and 3 carvery dinners, please."
I mean, it probably is.
I drink cider fairly often. It's usually more alcoholic than
I was
beer.
going to say like a cider might be like a 5%er where, your basic lagers there might be like 4.2 or something like that. So
right. It's almost always sold in tall boys in 4-packs. Like, so if you drink 4 of them and you kind of house them, you definitely be buzzing,
Yeah, you're drinking about the same amount as a standard beer. It's just, I thought it was weird. Like, I don't know if it must be a real rule. I don't know. Like, but I was like, is that a real thing? And then if that's the case, why is beer excluded, but mead and cider are okay,
It's probably real because it's oddly specific. B, it probably has something to do with like one of those like super old laws.
Yeah, could be.
Like, oh, children can drink mead in the Middle Ages because there's no water, or they can't have ale, or
Right, it's better for you than the water, which is dirty, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what I imagine.
And I did have to look up carvery dinners because I didn't know exactly what that was. So a carvery is basically like, if none of you guys had looked it up, but it's basically like a pub or like restaurant where they have like fresh carved meats that are available for customers, like either like an all you can eat like buffet style or for like a fixed price. Like they exist in pubs. So it's almost like you remember like back when we were younger going to like the hometown buffet and they'd have like the meat carvers like standing there. So it's basically that inside of a pub, which isn't a bad deal.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like, I want a beer, and someone's like, would you like a nice piece of ham? I'd be like, this is the greatest day of my fucking life.
Where for us, I was thinking more like a nice prime rib or something. Yeah. But yeah, the idea of like, can you imagine Joe walking into a shitty pub like this where it's, you know, for a fixed price, you get unlimited ham and pints?
Oh my God. I would be so sodium and sugar dead. Like it wouldn't be, my bloated corpse would look like a whale that washed up on shore. That would not be a good scenario for me.
The bartender was quick to get back at him too. He's like, yeah, that rule also states that if you're accompanied by an adult. So no adult, no alcohol, I'm afraid. So now Will looks over to the guy next to him at the bar. He goes, hey, sir. And basically says, I'll pay for all your drinks all night if you order us a few pints and these carvery dinners and just sit with us. You don't have to talk to us or do anything. Just if you order for us, like drinks are on me tonight. The guy's like, oh, okay, whatever. and he orders
pretty
the food
good deal.
And drink.
Yeah, it is.
Not bad. He was sitting by himself anyway, so.
I appreciated too, though, that he wasn't sitting, because this is pre-smartphone, that he wasn't just sitting on his fucking phone. You know what I miss? Going to the bar and people like had books and stuff. Or like you gotta get like lunch at work, like smartphone, and people be like eating alone, but they'd be like reading the paper. Like that shit's fucking gone now.
Joe, you can do that still.
I'm not saying I don't bring a book when I go. I mean, I don't do it now because I'm usually with somebody, but people don't, is what I'm saying. That was like common practice then. Now it's very rare.
True.
So now Will and that guy next to him at the bar with Steve walk over and they sit at the table with the other three guys. Will's like, oh, all right, got it all sorted out. And like, who's that? And this is Steve. He's going to be joining us. And like, what does Steve have to do with any of this? It's like, Steve is the reason we're going to be able to get our drinks. He's like, I'll tell you all more about the story once we get our ciders. And like, cider? It's like, yes, cider. And we've got to go to the carvery. And they're like, are you mental? Like, what's Carly going to think? Oh, Simon's pretty cool. He goes out and has meat and gravy with his booze. Like, is that weird to like, he's so nervous about like this girl, Carly. Is it really that crazy? Like, oh, look at them having dinner as they have a pint. That's so crazy.
It's crazy at that age.
Yeah. I guess.
But also, like, I would imagine that scenario, if I was put in that scenario at that age, I wouldn't have eaten the food, right? You'd be like, give me one slice and a lump of potatoes, whatever. But, like, I would just want the booze.
If I'm fucking hungry, I'll eat the food. Who cares? Like,
no, sure. But I'm just saying, like, they just want to drink. So, like, if getting food is the only way they'll serve you, just don't eat the food. Who cares?
Yeah, you don't have to eat it, or you can take one bite.
During the pandemic, there was, like, breweries had to be able to serve food to be able to be operable. And there was one brewery that if you went there, when you sat down, they'd walk up and give you one small like pretzel bite and put it on the table in like a little like paper cup and go, all right, what do you want to drink?
I mean, that's how the club sandwich is named. Like that's like, was it right after or right before Prohibition? I think it was like right after. They would require food to drink, but nobody actually wanted to eat. So they would make a sandwich. And they wouldn't eat it, and they would just pass that one sandwich around. Like, they'd just keep charging for the same sandwich, but nobody would actually eat it, so they didn't just keep wasting sandwiches. And that was, like, how the club sandwich got its name. As far as I know. That could be wrong, actually, now that I think about it.
And years later, the club sandwich, one of the more delicious types of sandwich you can get.
If not the best.
If you're trying to keep people from like wasting food because you're doing the same sandwich, why the extra piece of bread? That seems silly in that scenario.
All right, what's your favorite club, and why is it not turkey?
I like my sandwiches with alfalfa sprouts.
You're not in the fucking club.
I mean, turkey club is like my go-to, but sometimes I'll venture. I actually had a cheeseburger club recently.
That's my number two.
I love a cheeseburger club.
Cheeseburger club, yeah.
BLT club isn't bad. Don't sleep on that.
But that's just a club with nothing on it.
Yeah, because you get the bacon anyway and the cheese.
A BLT club is just a double-decker BLT.
You asked me what I like.
Okay, I'm not saying that's not a good sandwich. It's obviously a good sandwich. but it's a weird pick for the club.
Turkey, cheese, bacon.
Yeah, turkey. Yeah, turkey number one.
Joe obviously can't indulge in a lobster club, but that's pretty good. I've had those.
Oh, I've never had
Do
that.
you put bacon in a lobster club?
Yep.
You
Same
surf it and
things.
turf it?
Yeah, that works. I've said this before. I don't want to get into too long of a tangent because, the episode, I don't want it to go too long, but for the most part, I like to eat my lobster just like a plain lobster roll or like just lobster with butter or something. Yeah, something like that's fine with me because to me, it's like basically just like a lobster roll with like some bacon on it.
Yeah.
I'm not big on like lobster mac and cheese. Not that I don't think it tastes good, but if you're going to spend money on lobster, I'm not going to have it like where cheese is overpowering the taste of the expensive lobster that's also in the dish,
I think mac and cheese should always stand on its own.
I've had plenty of good mac and cheeses with things in it. It's just that lobster costs too much to not let it be the shining taste in whatever you're having,
Correct. I like a good lobster roll.
Wish I could.
All those boys go to get the food, leaving Neil and Steve sitting together. Neil's trying to make small talk with this guy, Steve. Steve's like mid 40s, maybe. These guys are like 16.
He's like a bricklayer or something who's just gotten off work.
He's a very working class looking guy,
He looks like the father in the middle. I don't know his name.
The janitor from...
Oh, actually,
Yes.
I could
Yes,
see that.
The janitor from Scrubs.
I hate that I can't think of his name right now, yeah.
I don't have his name. Neil's telling him like, oh, I just lost 10 quid on a fruity, which we established when Neil got that money. That's the entirety of the money his dad gave him. And he said specifically not to spend it basically in the slot machine, but he did. And as soon as he tells him that he lost that money, Steve's like, oh, really? And he gets up and heads over to the machine because he knows that someone just dumped in a bunch of money without a win.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if someone just said like, oh, I just bought 10 scratch tickets in a row and they were all losers, I'd be like, I'll probably buy the next one. See what
Yeah,
happens.
like I might buy 2 and see what happens.
Yeah.
I did that recently. I watched a guy put one back, and he was like, "No, I don't want that one. I wanted the other
you never
one."
do that.
And he put it back. I was like, "You dumbass!" I bought it, and I was like, "Fuck this guy," and I lost. I was like, "Shit."
Those cases, you never want them to see you scratch it though either. Like you have to let them stew in that thought of what if forever.
Yeah, right.
So now we cut to all those other guys and they're over at like the carving area. And Simon got a text from Carly and she's like, hey, like I can't see you guys. Like it's pretty packed in here. Like, where are you? She's like, it's not packed in here. I'm not gonna say what he said. They then go over like, where are we again? And apparently they were supposed to go to the Black Horse. They're at the Black Bull.
Oh, classic mistake.
I mean, I think that's the most relatable mistake ever, though. The Black Bull and the Black Horse. At least
Easy
you're
mistake
like,
to make.
okay, sure.
Other than the fact that it's like a tradition at that school, so you think it'd have like a little bit more legend behind it. But
Well, I mean, they're also not that bright. Like, it's established.
so they're like, all right, let's go. And Will's like, oh, hold on a second. Like, we didn't even have our like food yet. That doesn't work out. They're all going to take off. So like, I'm thinking like how much, like, I don't know how much everything costs, but essentially Will just spent all his money, right? He just bought 3 rounds, 3 meals, and 4 drinks for this dude, Steve.
It should be way more than $20.
Yeah.
He also, yeah, exactly. He only bummed $20 and then offered to buy this other guy drinks all night. And I was like, I don't know, man.
And he ordered 4 mixed drinks that were doubles. That's not cheap.
Yeah, that's more than $20.
Yeah.
Pretty much what it is. Also, imagine just drinking rum and cokes all night,
Ugh.
double rum and cokes.
Oh,
like of
so
all
sweet.
the drinks too, like I could get behind probably 90%. Rum and coke is not on the list though. Ugh.
I have not had a rum and coke since we were like 18.
Because that's when you drink rum and coke.
Yeah, rum and coke makes
Yeah.
more sense for the high school kids to be drinking than this
Yeah.
like bricklayer.
Should be the other way. He should be the one slugging pints of, whatever, but yeah, double rum and cokes. Fuck that.
Man knows what he likes.
I do like that when they all walk out, they pass by Steve and he's at that slot machine and he's like hitting now because he
Yeah.
wanted to go and like snake Neil's play.
So he got 4 free drinks and then won
They want a bunch of money, yeah.
all of the money from Simon from the Fruity.
So now it cuts from them like leaving that place immediately into them walking into the right place. And as soon as they walk in, everyone just starts calling Simon Boner.
Who's Boner?
And he's like, oh, good start. I'm going to go find Carly.
Do you know what I thought was a missed opportunity here? When he was scanning the room in here, the freaks should have been at a table drinking.
Oh yeah, that would have been
Yes.
like a nice little like way to round it out.
Right, to be like, you chose these people because you denigrated these people as freaks, but they're here, they went to the right pub, and they're part of the tradition, and you're not. It would have really set them aside as being like this group or the outcasts. I thought that was like an easy win that they kind of missed on.
Yeah, it would have given that little moment that we were talking about earlier. I like this was kind of a nice little moment for Will as far as looking like he is integrating with the group. It's nothing big, but it was just more like, who's around? It's like new boys. He's like, again? Yep. And it was just that kind of interaction where it's like they're still kind of like hazing him, but it's like new guy hazing. It's not like
He's part of the crew hazing.
it's no longer I don't want you here. Now it's more like just new guy hazing. But as he leaves to go get the drinks, we see Simon, who finds Carly, and she invites him to sit down with her. And she's like, no, come down, like squeeze in. Like he's like, oh really? It's like, yeah, because Tom's coming with the drinks right now. And then this guy Tom, who's like way bigger than him, like sits down.
Way bigger. This guy,
Yeah.
I don't know if they like forced a perspective on you or something like this, but this guy is like 3 feet taller than the both of them on the couch.
He's like the same height as Mr. Gilbert. Like, he's like a giant fucking man.
Yeah, so now
Yeah.
they're squished on this couch together. Like he just came by with a drink for him and Carly. Like, oh Tom, this is the Simon I was telling you about. He's like, oh, cool. And Simon's trying to like, yeah, I was just at the Black Bull first, like to sharpen up a bit, like just trying to make it sound like he's like a little tougher than he is. And she's like, who's this new Simon? Like, you cried when your dad poured whiskey over the Christmas pudding. And he goes, well, at least I didn't make myself sick in my plate when it had peas on it. And you could tell, like, so they do have like a closeness, as if at the very least, if it never turned into anything more, like almost like a sibling like closeness because of how long their friends have their families have been friends.
This boyfriend character too really like dads a beer. Like he like does the like one swig, slam the cup down, like we're leaving, right? Which is like such an adult thing that a teenager wouldn't do.
And we're getting some cutting back and forth. So now we see Will at the bar trying to buy a round again, only at this bar. He's like, oh, 4 pints, please. And the guy's like, do you have an ID? He's like, come on, you've got to be kidding me.
How does this work? How did all these other people get beer?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I think they're prepared and they have fake IDs and stuff. And I think I really think it's just a matter of show the minimal effort so I can say I did my job.
Sure, I saw
Yeah.
something.
Hey, you served that guy? Did he show you an ID? Yeah, he has an ID. Go check him. And if the ID proves to be fake, he can go, hey, I asked. He showed me an ID. So I missed it. But like, it's better than nothing, you know?
Yeah, at least you have like plausible deniability at that point.
That's how it feels to me, at least. It's like, just do the minimum and I'll give you the drink.
Like, show me something. Put a card up in the air with your picture on it. I won't read it. Use your school ID or whatever. Yeah.
And you know, it's funny too, like this whole quest for beer, I meant to bring it up earlier. There's kind of almost like the super bad vibe that goes with this show.
Yep, right down to the fake ID.
You got like the kids around the same age. It's that quest. It's that girls for the first time, parties for the first time, like being kind of the outlier crew. There's kind of a lot of little tie-ins that make it similar in a way. And they're from around the same time.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but yeah, it definitely tracks.
But then we cut back to Carly, Simon, and Tom, who are all on that couch together. And Tom's like, hey, Carly, we should get going. And Simon's like, you're leaving already? Like his whole night, like, think about it. Like from school all through the getting ready process, like his whole night has been based on like getting to see Carly out of work or out of school rather. And now he finally gets to see her and he sits with her for all of a minute. And now she's about to head off.
Yeah. Now, was anybody else expecting him to have a boner? Because he
Not
was this close.
I didn't think of it, but it would have been funny.
It
yeah.
wouldn't have been but it wouldn't have been weird if they called back to it, because then Tom could have been like,
Yeah, I think if Tom was like, "Do you have a boner?"
Yeah, I was expecting that, but
or you know what would have been great if for some reason if Carly got up at some point and left the two boys alone on the couch for a second, and it could have been like that awkward silence, and then Tom could have turned around and been like, why do they keep calling you boner?
Or one of the freaks walks by holding a beer and says like, "What's up, boner?" Like just to elevate again that they're not as cool as they think they are.
Yeah, but I would have
if she got up, your thing is good too, because if she got up and like walked past him, like her butt could have like went by his face or something, and he could have caught a glimpse of her butt and then popped a
well,
boner.
I wasn't even thinking that way. Mine was more, he doesn't have to get another boner, but just the idea of Tom heard people calling him boner, and if he asks him about it, it's that awkward moment where he can't tell him that, oh, I got a boner when your girlfriend's bra was in my face. Like, you know, like he can't tell him that. So it would have been like that uncomfortable silence, you know?
Like one more uncomfortable moment for Simon.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, they take off. We get back to the bar and Will's like, 4 pints of lager, please. And the guy's like, show me an ID. And then he snaps. He's like, look around you. Everybody here is underage. And it like quiets down. It's like, he's underage. She's underage. It's like, he looks a bit older because he's uglier, but he's even younger than I am.
The one that really got me is he goes, that girl's bra's got padding. 16. That fucking killed me.
This guy's mom still buys his trousers. He's like, this guy, maybe 17 at best. He's like, and then there's Mark Donovan, who's like the bully. So now he's just like, he's in such a rage, he doesn't even realize like that he's potentially getting himself killed. Like, he looks old and he's meant to be hard, but he's only 16. All these people you served are underage. And the way he like snapped and the way that scene went and the way he played it, like, I wanted someone to hit him. I'm like, fuck you, you little rat. Like, just
you're ruining this for everybody, you shithead.
Yeah, it was like a weird situation because I feel like you're supposed to root for this kid, right?
Yeah, you would want to be on Will's side.
And they're doing something that, I mean, anyone who's related to this, like any, you know, like we all grew up, like if someone did that to any of us growing up, like you would hate that kid forever. Sometimes you have to just fall on the sword, like it didn't work out for you, but you don't take everyone down with you.
Yeah, underage drinking, you don't pull the plug on everybody. You just hope that you come up the right side of it next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's a crapshoot.
I mean, how many times did we ask someone to buy us beer and they ripped us off? Like, it happens. Like, it's just, you hope for the best, but you can't fight it when it doesn't go right, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the game. When you're underage, you know, that's just the game you play. The bartender's quick to be like, all right, we're closed, everybody out, and now you're all barred. Get out of here. Everyone starts filing out of this pub. And as that's happening, Mr. Gilbert is heading in because he had mentioned earlier he's aware of the situation, so he was going there to like get everybody out of there at some point. Like that was his plan for the night. And he sees Will. He's like, oh, nice to see you again. And congratulations on doing my job for me. I'll make sure you get another badge for this.
Now, are we to assume that it's like a Monday?
I think so.
I guess.
Before we get into that, one question I have was, so everybody's gonna be mad at him for ratting on everybody, right? But what's his name just walked into the bar. It was gonna end anyways.
Yeah, but if he didn't say anything, then Mr. Gilbert would have been the enemy, not him.
Right, but they all walked by Mr. Gilbert on the way out. And like, so they had to have, they should have understood that this was gonna end anyways. And they're 16, they're more short-sighted than that. I don't know.
You're applying adult logic to teenage sophomores.
That's just my only thing. I feel like they could have like introduced Gilbert in a different way that would have, you know, avoided any conflict in that.
It's still always us versus them, though. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be betrayed by one of your classmates and like be called out specifically as this person's underage and you're serving them.
Yeah. Or that your mother still buys your trousers.
Because it's always like it's you versus the authorities. Like that's how it goes when you're a kid. Like that's how it naturally works. But when it's someone who's like, they don't have to be your friend, but they're kind of on the same team as you at this point. So, you know, you're not expecting, hey, I'm ruining your time just because I didn't get what I want is not a good quality of a human being, period.
But it is a quality of a teenage human being.
So now we cut to all the boys out front and Jay saying to Will, like, I don't care how fit your mom is. I wouldn't be seen dead with you. And they're like asking Simon, hey, you coming with us? It's like, no, I better like look after Supergrass here. Like, I don't want to leave him on his own just in case. I was wondering, is the band Supergrass, or is there like another, or is it something I don't know?
I didn't look this up, but the band Supergrass was 10 years before this, so it must be in relation to what their name is.
Because that was the first thing I was like, the band, but I didn't know if like if it meant something else.
It's
over
a
there.
British slang term for a snitch.
Oh, well, that makes more sense.
What was Supergrass's song? Because my brain went to Super Drag, Sucked Out.
Dude, I listened to that song after because I did the same thing, but then I realized that it was a different band.
Sucked Out's kind of a jam.
Since Simon said he's going to stay with Will, the other two are like, all right, and they take off. So now Will's like looking over at Simon and goes, "What a first day. I'm such a twat." "Guess you are. That was a pretty specialist back there." And he said his mom still buys his trousers. That was a personal highlight. He's like, "Thanks. I made that one up myself." It's like, "Who is that guy with Carly?" He goes, "A friend who didn't need an ID and has a car." Like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So like they are becoming friends. You know what I mean? They're having moments together now. Mark walks up, Mark being the bully, and Will's like, "Please don't hit me." He's like, "I'm not gonna hit you here, but I am gonna get you. Like, you're not gonna know when it's coming, but it is coming. It's gonna happen at some point this year. I will get you."
I do love on a show like this too, in the pilot, to give a ticking clock to a scenario.
Because at some point this season he's gonna get hit.
Right, and you know that it's going to call back to it, and I do like that sort of thing. And because it's a British show, it'll be in one of the 4 episodes of this season.
Yeah. As soon as he says that, Simon's mom pulls up, and then Mark goes, "Is that your mom? She is fit."
I was like, too, that rumor has gone, yeah, Fit's just hot. But like that rumor's gone through the school already. Because they didn't have that conversation with him, but he knows that.
I'm sorry, Will's mom, by the way. I said Simon.
Yeah, Will's mom.
He goes, "Oh, lovely to meet you, Mrs. McKenzie. I'll see you later." And takes off, and she's like, "Oh, he seems nice." It's like, "Nope, he's a school psycho, and he just threatened to kill me." Like, "Well, I'm glad you're making friends." So once they get in the car, we get a little bit of narration from Will to kind of close out the episode, basically. And like in so many words, he's just talking about like, "Well, that was a pretty eventful first day for me." He's like, "Now the school psychopath wants to stab me if he doesn't fuck my mom first." Talking about how, maybe I should have just stuck with hanging out with the freaks, but at this point, things can only get better, right? Or the same, or worse. So
I do love the very realistic, like, things can't only get better. Like, they could get fucking worse.
Yeah, they could absolutely get worse. So just be exactly what they are right now.
And then we end on the Libertines, which I think is a solid end to any show.
I do remember you being so hyper obsessed with Pete Doherty at this time.
Yeah, those 2 Libertines albums were so fucking good. The first Baby Shambles record was so good.
I want to say this is 2008, and then with you probably like right before that, a couple of years before that is like
this
when you're really
before that, because this song is from like 2003. Like the Libertines.
Yeah, I want to say like fresh, like towards the end of high school, fresh out of high school, is I feel like when I remember that from you. Yeah, that's the close of the episode, and yeah, I mean this was honestly having back to school month. We were looking for some different school stuff, and then kind of funny because we ended up doing 2 shows that were produced in England. Mrs. Brown's Boy last week was obviously a Irish but produced in England show. Kind of went back to back with a couple European shows. Yeah, I don't know. Again, this was recommended to us, and finally kind of found a way to incorporate it in a time that made sense. And a show that I don't think I would have ever watched had it not been recommended to us. So, I do want to say that, like, to anyone listening, like, we encourage you guys to send us picks, and we have watched some shows we never would have watched had it not been for you guys suggesting things to us. So, a couple that come to mind, like Todd Margaret recently and Trial and Error, like shows like I just never would have watched. So, keep it up with the suggestions. We get to them when we can. Unfortunately, we have a lot of things that we plan out ahead, and we obviously like to make some of our own picks. So, we don't get to them right away, but we do try to get to them when we can. So absolutely hit us up at S1E1pod.com, all our social media. So please do that. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about with the show before we close it out?
I think we're good.
All right. So might as well get into the green light or cancel. Again, Ferg's not here. So in the event of a tie and he's a tiebreaker, you will see a post on our socials that have all the scores on it, but I kind of have a feeling it's not going to come down to that. So we'll get into it right now. Gordo, starting with you.
Well, this is an easy green light. Pooping jokes right off the bat. And not just because of that, but it reminds me of us at that age, right? Like, so I can see this situation happening to us, not maybe the friend dynamic at least, because we did say that we never went to a new school. But because of that, like, I had more fun watching it, even though at times it felt like I was clock watching just a little bit right around the 10-minute mark and right towards the end. But other than that little critique, it was a good show. Really funny all the way around. Good chemistry, good writing. Green light.
Joe.
Yeah, for sure, green light. I think to Gordo's point too, and we said it a bunch in this, it just reminded me so much of us growing up. And I think the funniest thing about that I mentioned earlier is that it reminds me of us now too, which I think says a lot about how we've all not matured. That it's been 20 years since we're in high school, and we will still undercut each other to try to fuck with them as often as we can. I loved the writing of this. I love the fact that I probably wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't suggested to us. And this was one of those ones where it was really hard to not watch the second episode. Like, we're watching it tonight at dinner because I wanted to rewatch it before the episode we were going to record, and I had to like stop myself from being like, because I don't want to know any other parts of what this story might be that I assume the second episode might touch on. But that said, I'm gonna watch all of this. I'm probably gonna have to buy it because, again, the commercials on Pluto are fucking insane. Love crazy old baseball players as I do. But yeah, easy green light for sure.
Nick.
Yeah, not to reiterate too much, it's a green light. It's an easy green light. I'm really glad it was suggested because I agree this is not a show I probably would have found otherwise. I will definitely keep watching this. But the interesting thing I noticed watching this, though, was I stopped at a certain point being analytical and just enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like a fun watch. With what we do, it's like some, like even with good shows, like I want to try to find both, sides of the coin sometimes. This one, it would have been tough to find the other side of the coin on this one because it was just really fun. Like you guys said, it reminded me of us, growing up. I think it has a really good representation of this age group in high school, and just how shitty kids really are. Like you see a lot of, high school stuff, and it's obviously it has to do with the rating of the show, whether or not it's, R or PG-13 or whatever, but they never really feel real. And I think this one hit pretty close to real, which I can appreciate. I'm definitely excited to see what happens. I'm kind of bummed that it's only 18 episodes for the entire run, all 3 series, but I'll binge it for sure. It was a lot of fun. Easy green light.
Yeah, so for me, I'm not going to say much that you guys haven't already said. Just like mentioned with you guys, I felt very nostalgic watching it. It did, a lot of things did take me back to school. I thought that the overall chemistry with those guys, seeing their friendships kind of evolving pretty quickly was fun. No major complaints. Like the story was very simple. You know what I mean? It was like they weren't trying to do too much here, but like they established everybody really well. They didn't overload you with too much, like just very simple. Kids new at school, finds his group of friends. One of them likes a girl, like not too much to overwhelm you. Just a solid episode. And like I said, the second I saw Will basically planking while having sex with a girl in the beginning of the episode, I was pretty sold on it. I thought that was hilarious. So it's a green light for me. That being said, that's already 4 out of 5 with or without Ferg. So congratulations to the Inbetweeners. You do live on to see a second episode with us. I want to thank all of you guys for listening. Again, S1E1pod.com is where you can find all the links to all our social media. Please hit us up on Instagram, X, send us an email, do whatever the fuck you want. Hit us up. Let us know shows you want to hear, any suggestions you have, future theme months, anything like that. How you found us. It's fun talking to you guys. So stay tuned. We got 3 more weeks of back to school month ahead. And that's it. See you again next week. Thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best pepperoni cock.